Good day, everybody. What's up, Buttercups? And welcome to Mean Age Daydream with me, your host, Brian McWilliams. Hello to those of you that are new subscribers that have come on board after the interview that I did with Martin Armstrong. Love Martin. Definitely going to have him back on. It's funny. There's a lot of questions I wanted to ask him, especially that were passed along to me by some of our big-time supporters, those who are our Patreon members at the Mufasa level, who we do our monthly calls with. And it's funny. He's one of those guys that it's hard to interrupt him, right? He gets rolling, and then it's hard to get a word in. It'd be like, Martin, wait. I want to ask. And it's too far. He's already gone. But I will have him back on. We'll ask those questions. But welcome to the board, excuse me. Blech. I'm still recovering. I was in Vegas a few days ago and my brain ain't right. It's the equation that I like to use is when you're my age, you go hard in the paint, Vegas style, not getting much sleep, having too many drinks. It's your age divided by 10. And then you finally will feel better, right? That's the number of days, your age divided by 10. 4.5 days is what I'm looking at. I'm at 3.5 days right now, so I got one more day until I'm back to normal. But I digress, guys. Welcome to the show. Big news. Lou Perez has joined the Lions of Liberty. His show is on the feed. The Lou Perez podcast is now exclusively on Lions of Liberty, debuting. I believe it's going to be a week earlier than anywhere else, as well as Substack. So if you're a Substack member for Lou, you're not going to lose access to that. But he is part of our team. And of course, we will be debuting a new podcast on Friday because Meme Wars is going behind the paywall. Brand new podcast is coming out with me and Lou. And though he won't be joining us this week, and another new Lion of Liberty. Yes, we've been teasing it. Brian Nichols is also joining our crew. We're really happy to have Brian on board. Great guy. He and I have had some great conversations, as has Odie. Just funny, very well informed, super smart guy, and a fantastic voice for liberty and free markets. So welcome aboard, Brian Nichols. Guys, it only gets better here at the Lions of Liberty. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit notify, go to the podcast feed, Lions of Liberty Network. You will get all of the shows in one feed, or you can subscribe to them separately if you want, but I'd prefer you enter the one feed. Anyway, let's get into the show. So today, a couple of different things I want to talk about. I definitely want to get into what annoyed the living hell out of me, which is the labeling of people as MAGA opposition to a bipartisan bill that would attack free speech, that would have attacked the ability to boycott a nation, aka the nation of Israel. So we'll get to that in a moment. But first, I did want to chuckle a little bit about a couple of things. A couple of clips. And I swear to God, my computer's been acting wonky all day. So hopefully it doesn't crap out when I play this clip. But two things. Number one, just today, there was unveiled in Times Square one of these annoying ass left-wing bronze statues. Now, you guys will remember that there used to be a bull there that they moved because it offended people, because it was all about capitalism. It was the bull for the bull market. Outside of Wall Street. Well, that got moved because it was offensive somehow to morons. And happy post-May Day protest for you Democratic socialists who think that capitalism's a problem in the world instead of the solution to all things. So there was the little girl that they put in front of the bull, like somehow, I don't know, that signified what? I don't know, smashing the patriarchy, a little girl that hates having dolls, like Donald Trump saying, well, the tariffs, you might not have as many dolls, and the people aren't going to have as many things on the shelves. This is not a good thing. I don't know, this stupid little girl standing up against the bull that all these leftists covered as though it was some big statement annoyed the crap at me at the time, but not as much as this one that got unveiled today annoys the crap out of me, which is a statue of a big-bodied black lady. Let me share my screen here. I will share this video, and the jokes really write themselves. So here is this video. Let me play it quick for you. I'll try to make it bigger.
And communicate those inner worlds that we have, and sometimes we misinterpret with one another, to try and create an understanding and basically encourage empathy.
Encourage empathy. I presume that was the artist. I don't know his name, but let me tell you what this was, what this is. So again, my computer's being a turd and somehow not putting me back in full screen. I don't know why it's doing this. It's so frustrating. So frustrating. There we go. So what the statue was a 12-foot tall black lady. I'd say, big bodied, not your, let's say plus size model. And she's standing there looking like a pain in the ass. I mean, there's no other way to put it. She's standing there looking like somebody who is going to start a problem at a Wendy's. That's all I can say about it. And I had joked, I'd written 2 different comments about this statue. The first one was bad opinions, the statue, because you're just looking at this person, their face, and this is supposedly a generic black woman, right? And it's made by a black man, clearly. So he's saying that it stands for, I don't know, empathy and trying to get understanding between people, but nothing about the statue screams empathy. Empathy for me would be a statue of somebody looking friendly or understanding, not standing there with her hand on her hip, looking like she's just about to find out who the baby daddy is on Montel Williams. Like it's an awful statue. It's terrible, terrible. She looks, as I said, like somebody that has all of the worst opinions in the world. And she's going to tell you about them loudly. And she's going to shout over you. And she's not going to listen to a thing she said. And if you dare to get a word in edgewise, she's going to say you don't understand her truth. That is what this statue looks like. This generic statue. I'm sorry. I don't see how this is going to foster empathy. I don't see how this is going to foster goodwill. It's just like people are going to look at it and go, I've seen that woman on Real Star or World Star Hip Hop ripping someone's weave out. Like that's literally what the statue looks like. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you here. I know it's stereotypical to say, but I didn't make the statue. That's this guy did. Just ridiculous. And these people keep plopping these dumb statues in Times Square and somehow thinking that this is going to be an opinion changer rather than something that's going to be mocked, that people are going to take pictures of and with as a mockery, as a holy shit, I got a picture with the angry black woman statue as she complains in Rite Aid that they don't have the right, whatever, the right type of chapstick. And she's going to hold the line up for 25 minutes. That's the statue they put in Times Square. A generic black Karen is the best way I can describe it. Just so stupid. All right, so that was the first thing. The second thing is that Donald Trump met with Mark Carney. Now, Mark Carney came to the White House, and this is after making all the, basically Mark Carney ran as I hate Donald Trump. That was his entire campaign from front to finish. I hate Donald Trump. And it worked. And this is kind of the downside of the Trump phenomenon. And as much as I think that the culture shift in America is real and that it was absolutely necessary, I did my Patreon show, Good Morning F-Head, today, reflecting on this a little bit, right? Because there was an identification factor. Oh, I did it on my show today. I did about the May Day protests and how they're quote unquote anti-fascist, but yet they chased Matt Taibbi, whatever his name is, out of there and had a whole cadre of idiots dressed in masks because they're cowards and yellow vests holding signs that said right-wing troll or something like that, chasing him around. So this whole basically reflection on what America's become, on cancel culture, on the obsession with race that the left has put on the, this climate change stuff, on transing children, on endless spending, on open borders, on, forgiving all aspects of homeless behavior, of encouraging, terrible behavior in public and somehow writing that off as a cultural difference that should be accepted from people. All of these things Americans look at and go, this is screwed. Donald Trump was a reaction to that. There's no mistake about it. More black people voted for Donald Trump, more Hispanic people voted for Donald Trump than ever before. You had people crossing the border that were Democrats to vote for him. But there is the risk now, especially what's going on with the tariffs, especially what's going on with him, him being who he is, that you're going to have a reaction that's going to swing it back the other way. And that's what I'm terrified of, especially if the programs don't come to fruition, if Doge doesn't have the impact, if these tariffs continue to tank people's ability to buy products and goods and impact free speech and free trade, not free speech, but free trade. And in other nations that aren't directly experiencing the insanity that America had become, like a Canada or like an Australia, and Australia is already far left. Canada is fairly equally far left, but for a long time, it looked as though they were going to swing back to a conservative government. Donald Trump and the hatred in Canada towards Donald Trump because of the tariffs, because of the things he said about buying Canada and making the 51st state, had basically ushered in Mark Carney running on I hate Donald Trump. Predictable in a way. I mean, I still thought they would have gone conservative just for the benefit economically to their country and because their country had gone full totalitarian, but apparently not. Apparently, the hatred of Donald Trump is so strong, Canada is willing to accept totalitarian rule. Australia, same thing. They just selected a leftist in there as well. He's a little bit more, I'd say, in the middle than a Mark Carney is, who's just a WF pawn, basically wants to have all globalism all the time, roll over for the EU, and continuously fund Ukraine war. But Australia, despite the fact that they had essentially concentration camps and full lockdowns during COVID, and they have measures on the books that are similar to the ones here as far as protecting and raising up your certain populations, certain quote unquote minority groups that are purely based in racism, essentially against, white population. Well, they also have ushered in an I hate Donald Trump rule, which is taking effect now in their leadership currently. So where does that leave us with Mark Carney and Donald Trump? Well, interestingly enough, even though Carney ran on an I hate Trump platform, he apparently learned from Trump's meeting with Zelensky, which was hilarious and embarrassing for Zelensky. Essentially the exact opposite of what you should do when dealing with somebody like Donald Trump, which is come in, kiss his ass, try to make deals, try to continue a conversation on to the next point, because he is somebody that can be won over with flattery. If it looks like you're going to come into his domicile, his castle here, as Trump has put so many executive orders out there, he's virtually a king. But if you come in there and you kiss his ass and you at least make it look like you are going to negotiate, you're going to work with him on these things that he cares about, well, you're probably going to come out looking okay. Mark Carney essentially did that, right? He essentially said, yes, we're going to work on the fentanyl. We're working with you on the economics. We're going to help with the matters of the world and protect the world, which I fucking hate. But he went along with the Trump agenda, except in one place, which was really funny. And I took this clip from American AF account, but there was a hilarious reaction. And I apologize for those of you just listening. I will describe it, but I'll play this really quick because there's a moment where Donald Trump and Carney, of course, Donald Trump famously said that Canada was for sale. Well, here's Carney telling the Canada was not for sale. And Donald Trump's facial reaction is really what's funny here.
Watch. He's about to say Canada will never be for sale. Trump's face.
It's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity.
Sorry, there's commentary on top of my commentary there. It was hilarious. Mark Carney tells him that Canada will never be for sale. Donald Trump just kind of goes, I don't know about that. Like literally, the look on look, love him or hate him, the guy is funny. Donald Trump has got impeccable comedic timing. He just does. He's naturally got a comedic view, and the face he made was just literally like he's kind of half smirking. And Carney's like, it'll never be for sale. And he literally, you can see him just going, we'll see. It's kind of like, oh, God. I mean, really hilarious. Hilarious stuff. At the end of the day, I think that Canada will, in fact, capitulate. They will. Just as I believe that China will eventually capitulate. Now, the issue, as I've raised before, is that this tariff talk, I hate tariffs. I'm not a fan of them. Of course, Martin Armstrong, we were talking about tariffs last time on the show. But the question is who has more to lose and who can bear the brunt of that economic pressure long enough. And the answer to that is going to be the United States, especially as China's economy has already been slowing down. Canada, which has, basically spending almost nothing per consumer compared to America, they need our marketplace badly. And I've said before, the problem comes in when we can't make all the widgets and stuff. If you're going to tariff the crap out of everything else, American industries will also suffer. And you can pretend you're going to build these industries out. You can say you're going to build plants and factories. You can announce that you'll build plants and factories. Wonderful. Unless you're building 7,000 different plants to service one manufacturer of an automobile, it's still not going to work. And you're still going to have astronomically high prices. I'm all for bringing back manufacturing, but you got to be realistic. And I just don't know if Trump is being realistic at this point or not. As I said before, I'm open to seeing if it works, but there's a certain pain point, which I just don't want to get to. So anyway, let's move on to the meat here of the show, which is Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie had stood up against this ridiculous act, which was the IGO Anti-Boycott Act, or House Resolution 867. Now, this was a bill put forth by a bipartisan group of Republicans and Democrats, which sought essentially to punish the living crap out of anybody who dared to take quote unquote anti-Semitic actions, including boycotts of Israel. Now, this, according to the lawmakers, amended the Export Control Reform Act of 2018 to include international governmental organizations, IGOs, and existing anti-boycott laws, which, quote unquote, by these people's definition, targets harmful and inherently anti-Semitic boycott efforts undertaken at IGOs, while also extending protections already in place for boycotts instigated by foreign countries. However, the penalties for this, which could threaten the constitutional rights of Americans, I agree with this, include civil penalties, criminal fines of up to $1 million, and imprisonment of up to 20 years for supporting calls to boycott Israel. Now, Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene and other, members of the quote unquote MAGA movement, and this is what really is driving me insane, labeled as the MAGA movement, stood up and said, this is insane. You can't call for civil punishments for $1 million fines and 20 years in prison for exercising your right to free speech or your right to boycott companies or a country. I mean, we're talking about Israel. We're talking about a nation of Israel, and saying loudly and clearly, and I'm saying this after seeing brand new horrific photos of an entire family dead in the street of Gaza because Israel dropped bombs that hit a restaurant, an entire family, a child face down the street, a father and a mother, in a continued reign of hellfire, of blockades, of starvation, of bombing churches. I mean, it's inarguable the damage that Israel has done, the inarguable cruelty, and how, yes, I would define it as a genocide. I know people will have problems with that. I know some people feel that Israel has a right to defend itself. Well, it goes beyond that for me. And you're now looking at what is essentially a prison population. I mean, the fact that they told these people they could go out through this corridor and then bomb the corridor is really all you need to know. You, as an American, should never have anything codified that can go after your right to express displeasure or exercise the power of the purse to express displeasure in response to the actions of a nation. Flat out, period. I don't care, I don't care what organization you're talking about. There's just no way in hell that this should be permitted. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I have my own issues with, right? I mean, I can't say I'm the biggest fan of hers, but she and I align on certain things. But she and Thomas Massie were so outspoken about this that now Thomas Massie has drawn the ire of all sorts of people across the spectrum, including people that I formerly, had respect for. And this kind of reminds me of when Thomas Massie stands up against financial bills, and he gets all sorts of rafts of shit from people because they think that, oh, somehow he's not with the program. And this is where it's fascinating to me. And this is why the whole branding of MAGA people opposing this bill makes no sense from the left-wing media, like Newsweek, for example, called it a MAGA opposition. Thomas Massie finds himself in an impossible position almost all the time because of his principled stances. He gets attacked when he votes against bills that would continue the spending, which would undermine all of the efforts of Doge, right? He's called anti-MAGA. He's called a Trump traitor because he's standing up for the principles of which Donald Trump should be working towards, right? The entire efforts of Elon Musk, the entire announcements of Doge about all these cuts that are supposedly forthcoming are undermined by a massive spending bill, which still funds all of these programs that supposedly Doge is taking down. When he votes against it, logically, principally, he gets attacked. He gets Donald Trump saying he's going to primary him, which was stupid, by the way, by Trump. When he then votes for free speech against the slippery slope, against government censorship, against government control of what you can and can't boycott or speak out against, at threat of prison, he gets labeled as super MAGA. And that makes no sense because Donald Trump is the biggest Israel fucking honk out there. Like, what are you talking about, left-wing media? It drives me insane. Donald Trump wants to continuously fund Israel. He said Israel's our best friend. We are the finest ally. Bullshit on that. Bullshit on all counts. Israel doesn't need our money. They're not our finest ally. They're our number one cyber threat. They're our number one spying threat. I mean, it's ridiculous. And Thomas Massie standing up for free speech, which all quote-unquote MAGA Republicans should appreciate, let's not forget, have already labeled Thomas Massie a traitor. So which side is he on? None of them. And that's why he's amazing. But these people can't give him the credit where credit is due. And you'd think that left-wing, quote-unquote, free speech media, who all these left-wing media are predominantly on the side of let's say, Gaza, right, of the Palestinians. Why, in my mind, I don't understand, why would you label him a MAGA if it's on something you agree with? Like, fundamentally, these people don't make any sense. Their hatred of Thomas Massie for his going after spending, for his opposition to, to insignificant bills like the bill that, made lynching a federal crime, as if people are getting lynched out there all the time, and as if it's already a crime to lynch somebody. They hate him so much that they have to paint him as evil even when he agrees with them. I mean, that's how sick and twisted the left wing and the media have become. It's just sickening. It's sickening to see. So Representative Anna Paulina Luna, of course, has also stood up and said that this is BS. And by the way, I'm talking about this bill. It's already been pulled. It was defeated. Thank God it was defeated. It was slapped down hard enough that these people withdrew the vote. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to put it forth for another vote. Usually they do. But she stepped up and said no. Matt Gaetz, of course, who's now nothing. big mistake by Gaetz, apparently, to step down because he just gave up his seat for nothing. But he made a point like this: if this bill becomes law, how many Israeli products do I need in my home to avoid fines or prison? If I leave an Israeli-made product outside my house, this is the 2025 version of lamb's blood that keeps my family safe. Yeah, exactly. It's just ridiculous. It is the epitome of the slippery slope. If you are allowed and permit your government to say that you cannot boycott products coming out of Israel or cannot support vocally, a boycott, that is anti-Semitism, which is insane to say. Labeling anything. This is what I hate when these people mislabel something as anti-Semitism when you're speaking about an entire nation. The actions of a nation cannot be considered anti-Semitic if you object to them, especially when those actions include murder, rape, wanton killing of children, thievery, all of which have happened, all of which go on in the case of war. Let's not forget. But we have blatant examples of these things happening. I'm sorry, but no. And I've said this before, if you allow your government to define what is or is not free speech, what is or is not hate speech, what is or is not, anti-whatever, it will simply be applied to you whenever and wherever possible. When you allow them to define words, you lose the battle. You're done. Your freedom is lost. Throw it in the toilet. Just as I've said 1,000 times on this pod, but I'll say it again for you people who might not have heard it or are brand new. The same applies again. When you have anti-whatever speech, if we're in the slavery era, you as a white person or a black person or a whatever, a Chinese person helping build the railroads, should you have spoken out against slavery and we had these laws, anti-whatever, anti-hate speech laws, it would have definitively been considered hate speech to speak out against slavery and to argue that black people were as good as white people. It would have said that that was hate speech towards white people to even suggest such a thing. You would have been censored. You would have been imprisoned. They would have taken your business away. Your wife would have been out in the street. Your child would have been destitute. And there you have it. The same applies here. You cannot permit the government to define what is truth, what is speech, what is hate, what is love. These things should not be under the government purview. And they never, ever should even be challenged to the extent that they're being challenged in today's era under the guise that somehow a nation state is above the fucking laws and constitutional rights of citizens of this country. Disgusting. All right. Well, there you go. That's a little bit short today. I just, it's funny. There is one more thing. I was like, I tell you one more thing. There is one more thing. In Louisiana, there is a bill that is on the table right now, which is honestly so shocking. And Dr. Charles Belay, who ran for president, actually, under the Libertarian banner, or I should say, ran as a candidate to become president under the Libertarian banner, had brought this to our attention. And it's one of the most despicable things I've ever seen in my life. The Louisiana legislature introduced a bill that would remove the ability for it wrongly convicted, remember that, wrongly convicted prisoners that were in the penal system, remove their ability to sue the government for compensation. It's essentially police immunity for the entire prison system. I don't know how somebody thinks that that's, number one, something that should be put forth. I don't know how you morally justify it. I don't know how you justify it in an argument, and I don't know how you justify it in court. Unless you have a judge similar to the judges in Canada, which, of course, we would call it initially ruled, going back to authoritarian Canada, initially ruled that the Canadian government could freeze your bank accounts for daring to exercise free speech. And that was okay because, in the circumstances, it was very important to the country to be able to do that. That was literally the initial ruling, which they then walked back a year later. But how from a moral standpoint, how from any logical standpoint, can you argue that somebody wrongly imprisoned should not be able to be compensated? And the compensation was something like $40,000 for every year in prison, which, is a fucking bargain for the government. Because depending on what that person did, depending on inflation, I mean, imagine you come out of prison, you only got $40,000 a year. Well, okay, you come out, inflation's gone up 25% under the Biden and Trump spending sprees over COVID. And now you get, let's say you're in prison for 4 years, come out with 200,000, not even, come out with 160,000. Wonderful. That might last you, 2 years? And now you have to convince people that, yes, you spent the last 4 or 5 years in prison, but you were actually wrongly imprisoned. You got to believe me. I didn't do it, right? Can you imagine having that conversation with your employer? And these Louisiana shitboxes, they want to take away your ability to be compensated. They get to jail you indefinitely because who knows how long, who knows when you're going to get an appeal, who knows if they're going to even consider the evidence that would free you, because God knows people like Kamala piece of shit Harris would deny evidence. And don't forget that she did that as the Democrats trot her out to make anti-Trump speeches, and the media covers that Kamala Harris is going to make an anti-Trump speech. So about 20 articles on that. Big surprise. What else is she going to talk about? The moon again? I mean, come on. But don't forget, Kamala Harris worked to make sure that evidence wasn't entered into criminal conviction cases that could have exonerated people that she was trying to prosecute as DA. These people can jail you. You don't know how long you're going to be in there. You don't know whether or not they're going to even permit evidence to get you out. And you do eventually win. You're proven innocent. They have to admit that you're free in a court of law. It's been decided you are free, and they want to make sure that you get nothing. Hopefully you'll be happy. It's very Klaus Schwab of them. All right, that's going to wrap it up, guys. I have to get this thing published because we're doing this a little late today because we got delayed as we get our schedules synchronized and worked out, much as the women on the international space flight of 11 minutes all synced up their periods in space. We at the Lions of Liberty have got to sync up our periods for releasing the shows. So it's got a little bit jacked up this week, but we will be smoothing all that out and going from there. So don't forget the big takeaways. Lou Perez is on the show every week or on the podcast network. Brian Nichols is coming with the Brian Nichols Show. That will be joining the network. We have a new show that will be launching this Friday, and we're very excited to share that with you. And of course, there's going to be bonus content coming, more from Lou, more from Brian Nichols. We're going to have our meme wars go behind the paywall, and we'll see what else. Much, much more coming. So you can join us at patreon.com/Lions of Liberty for as little as $5 a month. But of course, if you spend more, you get more. And lionsofliberty.locals.com. Don't forget, please subscribe to the network, share the show, let everybody you know that this is the place to be. This is the hub for all things Liberty now. All right. From me, Brian McWilliams, from the Lions of Liberty Network, and from Mean Age Daydream, keep those electric eyes on me, babe, and keep that ray gun to my head. Talk to you later.